This is Shotgun Tom Kelly, and now that I have your attention, you wanted to be close to him during his impressive 15-year Major League career because he was always watching, listening, and looking for an edge. Now, Kurt Bavacqua brings that edge to Dirty Kurt's Dugout, where you can listen, watch, and be a part of the most honest, informative baseball show available today. Now, here's Kurt.
Wow, I got to tell you, today feels like good old times to me. And I'll tell you why. Right after the game, I'm coming on with you right after the game. I want to see some comments. I want you to take part of the show today, just like the way I used to do it, where I fielded phone calls, except now we can communicate with one another on line. You got to love it. You got to love it. Wow. My wife is the first one to say hi today. Well, Terrence Morgan told me he was going to go out and see Steve Garvey today. Something about Steve signing autographs in Downey. Why doesn't Steve sign? His number's retired with the San Diego Padres. Why doesn't he come down towards San Diego and sign autographs? I'm going to pay attention to all your comments. So if you see me kind of glance up on the screen, it's because I see somebody else came in, and I'm going to respond to them as they come in. For the most part, if I'm right in the middle of a sentence, naturally I'm not going to. But Steve, I agree. Great position for the postseason. They played a great series against the Colorado Rockies. We'll get that. We'll get to that in 1 minute. Today's game was kind of a letdown, but the one thing and the one set of people that won't let you down are people that support us. And it's Tony and Cindy out at Hacienda Casablanca in El Cajon, 700 North Johnson, to be exact, out in El Cajon. They will never disappoint you, and they will never let you down when it comes to a Mexican meal or a great Mexican drink. And of course, our good buddy at La Cima Oil, Tom Drake, who takes care of us with our gift cards that we can give out to you folks. Two people that have, well, actually three people, two different groups that have been with us since the get-go here on Dirty Kurt's Dugout. And of course, always out there is producer Joe. You know, Mark Grant made the greatest call you can possibly make as an analyst on a game the other night when he pointed out that Alec Colomé, the guy that closed the game for the Rockies today, was in a 2-2 game with Grisham at the plate. And Mark was quick to point out to Don Orsello that Colomé had not given up a home run the entire season. And no sooner did he get the words out of his mouth, Colomé hung a slider to Trent Grisham, and he hit it out of the ballpark for a walk-off home run. Mark almost did the same thing today. At the start of the broadcast, he started talking about how difficult it was to win a 5-game series. For one thing, you hardly ever see him. And the reason that this ball club did play a 5-game series against the Colorado Rockies was because of the games at the beginning of the year. I know we've talked about this before. The lockout, the first week and a half to 2 weeks of the season was called off. All those games had to be made up. Well, almost all of them were against the Colorado Rockies. So the Rockies and the Padres really had an overabundance of games that they had to make up. This game was originally scheduled for 3 games on the original schedule if you go back before the lockout. So they made it into 4, and then they had to figure out that they got to make it into 5 because for some odd reason, a team in your own division only makes 2 trips into your ballpark in the given year. That's too bad. So today's game kind of was a letdown, and I kind of egged a couple of people on social media. Corey Stewart, he's a great guy. He's at Corey Stewart on Twitter. Couldn't stand Eric Hosmer. Just couldn't stand him. And I kind of threw a tweet out to him today during the game because, to be perfectly honest with you, I was a little disappointed in Juan Soto's defense, or at least the look of it. So I'm not going to start anything yet. I'm going to sit back and I'm going to wait. I'm going to watch these guys play. And when I say these guys, I'm going to get to that in a minute also. But I kind of threw a little bit of a hammer out there to Corey Stewart, saying that if that was Eric Hosmer playing right field, he'd be all over him on Twitter. So that was my little way of saying that we shouldn't be real happy the way right field is being played today. There's nothing more than I could say to add to what people have already said about the passing of Vince Scully. Vinny was one of those people that come along in life that is just special. And not just because of the way he called the baseball game. He was a special person. Always right on top of saying hello to you. He was just a great guy. And I'm going to miss him. And I have something that will forever link us together. Because Vince Scully was on the mic the night I hit my game-winning home run in Game 2 of the 1984 World Series. He was also on the mic in Game 5 when I hit the ball out of the ballpark in Detroit. But then Gibson came back. Of course, Vinny, famous for his call, among other calls, but especially the Kirk Gibson call in 1988 when he pinch hit against Dennis Eckersley. And, of course, Henry Aaron's 715th home run and the things that were said about baseball coming from Vinny's heart when the home run was said and done. And Vinny said, you need to look it up. He said the things that he said that night back in 1973, I think it was, when Hank Aaron hit a home run against Al Downing of the Los Angeles Dodgers. And, of course, Vinny was on the call. He was on the call for every Los Angeles Dodger game for 67 years. The thing that was hard for me to believe is, during the course of the last day and a half, you hear everything about Vince Scully. I can't believe he retired in 2016. It just doesn't seem to be that long to me, but it had been. Vince Scully gone at the age of 94. May he rest in peace. Next week, going to have on the show a good friend of Vince Scully's, his wife Sandy, and Dennis Gilbert and his wife Cindy broke bread with Vinny on many, many occasions. But Dennis is not going to be on the show just because he was a good friend of Vince Scully's, although we're going to get some stories from him. But Dennis also has a lot to do with the history of baseball and a lot of what happened in baseball. He's a former minor league player. He's a former player agent. And he is the author of the Bobby Bonilla deal. July 1st, every year until 2034, I think, Bobby Bonilla is going to get a check from the New York Mets for about $1.2 million. And everybody talks about it when that time of the year rolls around, but they hardly ever talk about Dennis Gilbert. Well, guess what? We're going to have Dennis Gilbert on the show next week. Okay, back to the Padres. Join us, please. Join us. It's going to be a great show. Dennis is a really, really interesting guy, and we're going to have a lot to talk about. There he is. Okay, we all know by now that the Padres went gangbusters at the trade deadline, acquiring not only Josh Hader from the Brewers, which kind of surprised everybody, kind of threw a twist in it, but you know what? That's AJ. But they got Juan Soto and Josh Bell from the Nationals. And here's what they had to give up. Outfielder Robert Hassel III, outfielder James Wood, that 6'6", 6'7" Dave Parker look alike of a player. Don't know if he has that good of an arm, but just the same, he kind of looked like Dave Parker back in his heyday, early on, 73, 74. CJ Abram, who we've gotten an opportunity to see here in San Diego. Mackenzie Gore, another guy that we've gotten an opportunity to see here in San Diego and did really, really well, especially at the beginning of the year. And the guy that a lot of people think might be one of the guys that is going to surprise a lot of people in this deal, and that's right-handed pitcher Jarlin Susana. Of course, Luke Voigt is included in that deal, getting back to Susana. 6 foot, another guy that's huge, along with James Wood. Susana is 18 years old. He's out of the Dominican Republic. Throws 100 plus, and he's only 18. So all the talk is, what if? You know, if all of these guys reach their potential and eventually become Major League Baseball players, it could happen. It's not very likely, but it could happen. This will be a blockbuster deal for the Washington Nationals. But prospects are just that. Major league teams acquire prospects in hopes that they become good or even decent Major League Baseball players. Some of these guys have an opportunity to become good Major League Baseball players. Will they achieve that? Well, we don't know from the Washington National side of things, but we do know one thing. Juan Soto and Josh Bell are great baseball players now. Will we see them in a Padre uniform in 4, 5, 6 years? That remains to be seen. It also remains to be seen whether or not any of these guys that I just mentioned will be seen in a Washington National jersey. You know what? I hope they are. I hope every single one of them becomes a major league player, because that's what it's all about. And we certainly don't wish any ill will on anyone, especially to make a trade look better for another side. So I wish these guys all the best. But I want Juan Soto and Josh Bell to kick some butt here in San Diego. And if last night was any indication, the rest of the year is going to be a lot of fun. Again, I'm going back to today's game, and not only is it hard to win 5 games, like Mark Grant said at the beginning of the game, but there was a letdown, I believe, from last night and the day before. It's only natural. One of the things that came from the Josh Hader deal with the Milwaukee Brewers was Taylor Rogers went there, as we all know, tied for the major league lead with 28 saves. I mean, this guy did an unbelievable job. And if you take away the last 2 or 3 weeks of him coming out of the bullpen, you'd say, how can you even think about trading that guy? But the Padres got one of the best closers in baseball in Josh Hader. So he comes in the first night he's here in a non-save situation, and instead of getting a save, he gets a win. He comes in, shuts him down in the 9th inning. Trent Grisham hits the walk-off home run. Winning pitcher, Josh Hader. Also included in that deal was Dinelson Lamet, if you remember. And the Brewers did something very strange. And I'm waiting for something to come out of this, and I haven't seen it yet. But Dinelson Lamet got DFA'd yesterday. I don't have an answer for it. I really don't. So we're just going to have to wait and see. The guy that I was a little disappointed in seeing getting traded away, along with C.J. Abrams, to be honest with you. I really haven't had an opportunity to see Robert Hassel III or James Wood play that many games. I've seen him in a game or two, in an at-bat or two. But Esteury Ruiz is a kid that I really liked, the way he looked and the way he swung the bat and the way he just carried himself on the field. I think that's a kid that's going to be a solid major league player for a long time. But again, it's a wait and see. So with all of this stuff going on with the San Diego Padres, of course, Eric Hosmer's gone. He was included in the deal for Soto and Bell to the Washington Nationals, had the Nationals in his contract as one of the teams in a no-trade clause. So in order for this deal to go through with Eric Hosmer's being a part of it, he had to okay it. I got to tell you, folks, don't even think for 1 minute, 1 second, that this deal was predicated only on Eric Hosmer accepting it. These guys knew that there was a good chance that Eric Hosmer wasn't going to accept this assignment. And they knew that they were going to have to move him in another direction. As a matter of fact, I think if he would have accepted it, A.J. Preller, Peter Seidler, and the group in the baseball ops department down at Petco Park, I think would have been very not only excited, because they wouldn't have had to do it again, but I think they expected him not to okay the deal. and he didn't. He was in a good negotiating position. Let's put it that way. So I don't know what went on the side with any side deals, if at all, but Eric Hosmer went to the Boston Red Sox for infielder Max Ferguson and outfielder Corey Rosari and cash. Now, wait a minute. Boston had to get cash in that deal. Traded Hosmer. Yes, they got cash. So Ferguson, Rozier, and Hosmer went, and cash went to Boston for left-handed pitcher Jay Groom. So we got a left-handed pitcher back. And then the thing that surprised me, and what does he do? He comes up and hits a grand slam, the first pitch he ever sees in a Padre uniform. But that was Brandon Drury being acquired from the Reds. I couldn't figure out how this guy fit in. And now as I sit back and I take a look, I see how he fits in. This guy can play a lot of different positions, and wow, he can swing the bat. I was pleasantly surprised because I didn't get an opportunity to really see him play a lot of different games. You know, at times when we played the Reds, I saw him, but I didn't realize he had the pop that he has. And I'm looking forward to with him being in a Padre uniform. Now, what did the big old giant up the road do? Well, as far as the Athletic is concerned, they got a D- in this trade deal with acquiring Joey Gallo. So the Los Angeles Dodgers, who's leading the division by 12 games, and they've got a right to stick their nose up at everybody else because they're kicking everybody else's butt right now. That's all there is to it. I mean, a team that normally plays them really well, they just swept them, the San Francisco Giants. Of course, the Giants have made quite a few changes, and they're not the same team that we're all used to looking at. And we'll be playing them in the next week, so that's a good thing. But the Los Angeles Dodgers just take the field, I'm convinced, just like they do against San Diego Padres, and they just wait for something to happen because they feel pretty good that it's going to. You know what? That's okay. That's okay. But the Padres can't go into LA looking to win 2 out of 3. They got to go up there thinking about sweeping a 3-game series. They've got to win every single game, and whatever it takes to win every single game. And I'm talking about against the Dodgers. If you look back at all the games over the last couple of years that the Padres and Dodgers have played, with the exception of a couple, every game's been neck and neck. It's been close. So with the rosters that these two teams have right now, I'm looking forward to be really close games. And with that said, Bob, get your small ball out because it'll end up winning games. The Mets are locked in a National League East situation with the defending world champion Atlanta Braves, where they've got a couple of game lead on them. And guess who they're playing for the next 3 days? The New York Mets against the Atlanta Braves. Well, the New York Mets can do the San Diego Padres some big favors when it comes to the wild card and the wild card positioning. So we'll get to that in a minute. What did the Mets do? The Mets got a pretty nice grade by just taking Jacob deGrom off the IL. That was the best move that they made during the trade season. Because the only other thing that they did was acquire Darren Ruff from the San Francisco Giants. They must think a lot of him. I don't see it, but we'll see who was right by the end of the season. So again, getting back to Brandon Drury real quick with where he stands and what he's going to do for the San Diego Padres. If you're a little confused like I was when that announcement was made, this kid's hitting almost 280. Of course, he made a big splash when he broke in at Petco the other night and hit a grand slam home run, his first, not just his first at bat, but the first pitch that he ever saw in a Padre uniform. That's pretty good stuff. He's got 21 home runs on the season. He'll become a free agent next year. So I'm not expecting him to be around San Diego very long, but he's going to help this ball club down the stretch. They've got Will Myers. I mean, if you looked on the bench today, you got Will Meyer. No, he wasn't on the bench. You got Jake Cronenworth. Will was playing. He played first base. And Josh Bell was the DH. There's so many different things that Bob Melvin can do. The thing that worries me about that, and I think a perfect example of it was today when a ball was hit over Soto's head in right field. The second baseman, Drury, goes out to be the cutoff man. Kim is following him up. He's the second cutoff man. And he turns around and he looks to see where he needs to throw the ball when he got the perfect cutoff throw. That's a job that Kim has got to be screaming at him, because Kim can have his head turned and watching the runners while Drury is accepting the ball. And if he fielded the ball and whirled and threw the ball home, he would have gotten the runner. But he didn't do that, and it cost the Padres a run. And I think at the time kind of turned the tide a little bit. So let's take a look at the standings real quick. We'll go over those, talk again about next week. The Padres are off on a 3-game road trip, 80, 90 miles north, up to Dodger Stadium to play the Dodgers the next 3 games. And then they come back home before going on a little bit of a trip to Washington. God, I used to hate East Coast trips. They were so hard on you as a player with the time changes and all of that stuff. So it was a tough go, but they'll figure out a way to get through it. At least they're playing the Dodgers first. Doing what they did to the Colorado Rockies was really, really a good sign, because the Rockies had messed them up throughout the course of this season. And for them to win 4 out of 5 during this homestand against the Colorado Rockies, it was a good deal. It really was. I was very impressed the way they played. If we're not able to pull up the standings on the screen, I'll just pull them up on my phone. I'm sure that there we go. I was going to say, I'm sure that the Los Angeles Dodgers finished beating the San Francisco Giants today, but we'll go over to the American League first. Oh, no, we're not. We're going to go to the National. There we go. We will go over to the American League first. Yankees with their big lead in the East over the Toronto Blue Jays, who incidentally are like the Padres in this division in the National League West. They're 13 games over 500. Tampa is 6 games over 500. Both of those teams, along with Cleveland and the Chicago White Sox, are in the wild card run. The Seattle Mariners naturally are also in the wild card race. And Cleveland and Minnesota are just battling it out for who's going to win the division in the Central. That's going to be interesting. Now, over in the National League, let's take a look at where the Mets are with the Atlanta Braves. You can see that after this weekend, the Atlanta Braves could virtually be in a deadlock for the division lead if these games against the Mets go well. So that's going to be an interesting series. Let's not count out the Philadelphia Phillies yet. The Milwaukee Brewers and the St. Louis Cardinals are just going to continue to battle it. Like I said earlier in the year, they're going to battle it throughout the entire season. And one of those teams might end up being a wild card team. Of course, the Los Angeles Dodgers are beating up on everybody in the National League West with San Diego in second place. They're a full 10 games up in the win column on the San Francisco Giants, but they're 12 and a half games in back of the Los Angeles Dodgers. So you have to at least go into these series against LA thinking, you know what? We just need to win every single game. That's the way I would look at it. I hope they don't look at it as let's go in and try to win this series. Let's go in and try to win every game. Because if you do that, not only are you going away with self-confidence within the ball club, but you're also setting the stage for the postseason. Even if they can't make 12 games up in the division, which I think is going to be a very hard thing to do. The Padres are in a good position to be a 1 or a 2 seed in the wild card position. So again, there's going to be some games against the Atlanta Braves and the New York Mets before this season's over. That's going to certainly help the San Diego Padres, whether or not the Mets are in first place or the Atlanta Braves are in first place. So San Diego's just got to keep on winning. And I think the mentality in their clubhouse right now with the acquiring of Juan Soto and Josh Bell and Josh Hader and Brandon Drury, I think that did a lot for this ball club, is that they can go out and they can win the championship this year. Whether they win the division or not remains to be seen. But I think they believe that Western Division title or not, they can win the World Championship. And, you know, Peter Seidler deserves all the credit in the world. He really does. Jesse said, even with Soto, the Padres are still going to need some breaks to beat a healthy Dodgers in a series. I don't know what series you're talking about. If you're talking about postseason, I think you need to get breaks to win a postseason series. And I agree with you 100%, Jesse. I think the ball club, this ball club in San Diego, might be back a little bit too far. I heard that Kershaw was scratched today. Postseason series is what you were talking about. I see that now. So I don't, any team needs breaks to win a postseason series. I think the San Diego Padres have, if not an equal to team, if not better, in an everyday lineup than the Los Angeles Dodgers do right now. There's a lot of people out there that argue with me about that, especially if you're a Dodger fan, and that's great. I don't have any problem with it, but I'll be glad to compare players with you. The Dodgers have some serious holes. And if you don't believe me, look at Muncy and look at Bellinger. So the San Diego Padres, as Jesse just pointed out, match up as good or better against the Los Angeles Dodgers than anybody in baseball. The difference is going to be on whether our pitchers, the San Diego Padres pitchers, make pitches in the key situations and don't give up 2 and 3 run home runs. If they want to give up solo home runs, that's fine. I don't have a problem with it. I really, really don't. As a matter of fact, I'd rather see them give up a 2-0 home run if they're winning by 4 or 5 runs to Cody Bellinger than I would seeing him walk him. And I'm sure Bob Melvin will tell you the same thing. If they pitch smart to these guys, not only is it the Muncy and the Bellinger, but there's other players in their lineup that have holes. We got to go to those holes. And I think one of the main guys going forward in this pitching staff is going to be Blake Snell. You can tell me I'm crazy. But remember I said it. Okay, thank you to Tony and Cindy out at Hacienda. Thank you to Tom Drake at Lacima Oil and your neighborhood Chevron stations, especially the one down at Genesee and Balboa, the one that I frequent. And Will Trent, I told you guys I wanted to talk to you today, so I'm going to go right to, will Trent Grisham be a better hitter now that he can watch Soto take at bats? I don't know if it's going to make him a better hitter watching him take at bats, or he's just going to become a better hitter like everyone else throughout the lineup, because hitting is contagious. It is contagious. You see the rest of your buds and the rest of your pals doing it, and you want to do it too. Plus, it puts a lot of pressure on the pitchers. When they've got Grisham up at the plate and the next hitter in the lineup, I don't know where he's going to be hitting, but I'm just giving you examples here. Profar swinging a hot bat. Maybe they move Trent Grisham at certain times to the leadoff spot, because we still don't know exactly when Tatis is going to come back. I am thinking that he'll be back within 10 days, but I have no inside information. I'm just going by how he's swinging in batting practice, watching him in pregame, and so on and so forth. He's not going to be down in the minor leagues very long or in a rehab assignment. So thank you to everybody. Enjoy the series this weekend. And don't forget, Dennis Gilbert next week. I almost made it without coughing. Every time I get excited, Dennis will be with us next week. So don't forget, Thursdays at 3:30, unless there's a day game. And if there's a day game, then we'll do it as soon as the game is over, like we did today. So we had a post game for you. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Thanks for all your comments also. Dirty Kurt's Dugout saying goodbye. Thanks, guys.